Our Just Jesus series, and we're going to talk about words and fruit because we're reading from Matthew the 12th chapter, verse 33, where Christ puts those two things together. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad, for the tree is known by its fruit. You brood of vipers. Interesting. How can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, on the day of judgment, that should have said, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak, and by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Mercy. I'm telling you, when I read that, I don't know about you, you probably don't have a tongue problem like I do. Well, apparently one of you does. Most of you probably only speak spirit-soothing, soul-cleansing, encouraging words. Most of you probably do. I have a tendency to speak otherwise occasionally, which makes me excited when I read these verses. And I noticed that right in the middle of his own lecture, Jesus says, "You brood of vipers." Did you notice that? See, only a person who needed that encouragement would have seen it. And it encourages me. In fact, I'm thinking about adopting that phrase on the freeway this week. And then I can simply say, that's just what Jesus said. I don't know how it will look when you go down the road. Brood of vipers! I don't know if anybody can read those lips. Brood! And my wife probably won't ride with me. But it's going to be fun trying. Because Jesus used it. And he used it in a lecture on words. How ironic. Is that not humorous? Am I the only one who finds that funny? I think it's funny. Your words come from your heart. You will be known by your words. You'll be judged by your words, you brood of vipers. I'm just quoting Jesus here. Don't hang me. Walk out on me now. If Jesus said it. If Jesus said it, there's got to be a reason for it. And of course there is. So that we wouldn't take this down our namby-pamby lane and turn this into, you know, you're never supposed to be irritated or upset at anything, and you're never supposed to point out evil when you see evil, because your words are supposed to always be perfect. That's not exactly what he was trying to teach us here, which he demonstrated clearly by turning to that bunch and saying, "You brood of vipers." He clearly was not too worried about their self-esteem, even though he was indicating that we ought to be. So we're just going to talk a little bit. You know when he starts this that he's not talking about trees. I mean, it's a good allegory, but you and I know that he's talking about us. When he refers to a tree being good and therefore its fruit is good, or a tree being bad and therefore its fruit is bad, for a tree is known by its fruit, he's talking about you and me. We are known by what we produce. And he makes the allegory complete. A diseased tree does not produce healthy or edible fruit. And a good tree does produce healthy and edible fruit. And all he's really trying to tell us is that eventually whatever you are will come out right here. Whatever you believe will come out right here. Whatever you truly think will come out right here. For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's only fair, because of some of the guilty looks on some of your faces, if we do also point out that sometimes you do say things you don't really mean deep down in your heart. You say things out of an emotional moment, and then you apologize and regret it because you know it really did not come out of your heart. And so it's easy sometimes when you want to judge people and condemn them and they speak badly to say, well, see, that must have been in their heart or they wouldn't have said it, and then forget that you've done the same thing. Because you have. You said things that you regretted the minute you said them. Because you regretted them because you know they did not come from the true way you feel. They came from your defensiveness at the moment. And so we're just going to talk for a few minutes about words. Won't take us long, because the longer I speak, the more I'll hang myself. My pastor, growing up, used to have a sign that hung right out here on his pulpit facing the audience. And I spent a number of my youthful years kind of admiring him for the sign. The sign simply said, "Nothing is opened more times by mistake than the mouth." It hung on the pulpit right here. Nothing is opened more times by mistake than the mouth. And I would go sit in church and look up at that nice big pulpit, custom made, and that little plaque right there in the front of it, and I thought, how noble of him to serve himself a reminder every week before he gets up in the pulpit, nothing is opened more times by mistake than the mouth. He even referred to it now and then, and he was deliciously careful. I grew up under a man named Paul Hush, and he was deliciously careful. I mean, really and truly, he never insulted people. He spoke very, very kindly. If you had a problem or a need and he knew it, was aware of it, he would always address it with compassion and kindness. It didn't even matter how big a problem it was. When I was a boy, about 10 or so years old, I had a habit a lot of kids have, biting my nails. It was no big deal. I just liked dirt and the taste of it. And I was standing in the forge one day, and you know, I bit them so bad they were kind of like embarrassing bad, and they bleed sometimes. And we were standing in the church foyer on the way out, and he reached down to shake my hand and pat it, and he looked at those, and man, looked at my fingers. I tried to pull my hand back, and he gripped it. And he said, "Step in here a minute." Just held on to it, pulled me in there, and he said, I did not know that you were tearing your hands up this bad. And I said, "Yeah, okay, I'm embarrassed. Yeah, that's okay. It's something I do." He said, "I know, but it's something that you can get out of it." He said, and I'll tell you what I've learned. I've learned that money will get people out of a whole lot of things. How much would if I offered you money, do you know that in like a month, these things will actually start growing right? And I'll tell you what I'll do with him. And he's privately, away from everybody's ears. My pastor stood there and offered me money if I could show him notable growth in my fingernails in a month. And it was like $10, which today is like $100. And I was like, that's cool. And so I did. And then I thought about starting the habit again just to try to make more money every couple of months. Might have even suggested that to him. But he was that kind of guy. Just paid attention to you and what you needed, and he tried to find ways to motivate you or inspire you. And I was just extremely proud of him growing up. And then we moved away. And when I came back as a man from the Army from Vietnam, came back to his church as a man, having left when I was about 14 years old, 13, 14, something. Came back to him, to his church, back from the military, and it was a great experience to come back as a man and a minister and sit under my former childhood pastor. One of the first services I preached as a new preacher back in the States was in his church, and he mentored me and guided me, and I will forever be grateful. One evening, sitting in his office, I brought up the plaque in the front of his pulpit, and I said, "Man, I can't believe that plaque's still there. All my years growing up, I'd sit out there and see that plaque, and I always thought how remarkable that you had that up there to remind yourself every sermon that nothing's open more times by mistake than the mouth." And he just chuckled. He said, "Who do you think that's pointing toward?" I can't read it. It's for them to read. You don't like my sermon? Shut up. Nothing is open more than that. Don't make a mistake today. You see that? Don't make a mistake today. Shut up. I like to fell out of my chair. All those years I thought he was reminding himself to be very gracious with his tongue. He was reminding you, be nice. Shut it. I put a blog out yesterday or the day before. Anybody read my blog? The long one? 3 of you. Thank you. Thank you very much for all 3 of you who read it. It was mean. Called it On the Hating Side of God. How dare me. Could God hate? Yes, he could. I wrote scriptures in there to prove the point about God. You could be on the wrong side of God. Not careful. My wife was there. My wife said, I wouldn't do it in front of her because I'm being careful with my work. I said, why would you put that out? And I said to her, because I need a little controversy right now. It's been a while since I got hate mail. I don't work very well without hate mail. I thrive better when people are sending me nasty emails and threatening me because I'm such a creep about the gospel. I love it. It motivates me. It inspires me. It makes me want to dig down deeper and be even nicer about the gospel. Now, the truth is, I'm disappointed because I haven't got any hate mail. I didn't ask for it. I'm not trying to be hateful. I literally quoted verses that teach us that God can hate. And you can actually get on the wrong side of God. And the scriptures are very clear about that. Unless you're an American, going to an American church, and hearing the namby-pamby Jesus, who just wants you to have a nice day, and put on good gospel music in the car when you're driving on the freeway. That's all Jesus really wants you to do today, is have fun, and be sweet. And if he does that for you, you have succeeded as a Christian. And that's it. That's about where we are. It disgusts me. It just disgusts me. People whine about stuff that doesn't matter. Dear Lord, have you ever got out of this country and realized how people live? We whine about the color of carpet on the floor in a church? Are you serious? Well, you know, I went to 3 churches, and every one of them, they don't watch the clock. And the other one, then keep going till you find nirvana. Because it's out there. Somewhere there's a handful of people that God just built for you to fall into the middle of, and they'll just swallow you up with love, and they'll pamper you, and they'll wipe your nose when it drips, and they will encourage you with. And at some point, we're supposed to mature enough where we realize I'm never supposed to walk into a room, a church, a family, a circle of friends, an employment place, and think that it's all about me. And what can you do for me? At some point, I'm supposed to wake up, grow up, realize it's all about service. And what can I do for my environment? How can I help you? How can I bless you? How can I promote, encourage, lift up? Did you know one of the few admonitions we're given about what a church is supposed to do when it comes together? Very little instruction. But did you know one of the few admonitions we're given is that when we're all gathered together, we're supposed to exhort one another to good works.
encouraging each other to go back out there and do better. Do good. Do the best you can. Instead of, this is the third row. Nobody has asked me how I am. And I tried to make it obvious. I told you, was it last week? I told you about the lady that came up to me when I was flat busted. Had a revival coming up, wasn't sure I was going to have enough money to put gas in my car. Secretly praying, please God, what am I going to do? I can't ask my parents anymore. I can't beg for money. Please, would you just maybe impress somebody to just come up and say, hey, little preacher man, here's $50 just in case you need it. Would you just do that? Because he's done it before. And then here comes a woman in the middle of, I'm in church sitting about 3 rows from the back or somewhere, and I'm like, I got to leave tomorrow. What am I going to do? I'm broke. I got no money. That last church paid me $35 for a whole week. The preacher drove my car. That's true. True story, Arkansas. 2 weeks, the preacher put 1,200 miles on my car in 2 weeks, and he gave me $70, $35 a week. That's a true story. He liked my Grand Prix, 1970, 400 cubic inch 4-barrel carburetor. I did too. I didn't mean to put gas in it for him all week long. God, what am I doing? And here comes a woman, and I'm telling you, my spirit like, thank you. Puts her arm around me, brother Danny. Yes. I'm going to be humble when she gave me the check. You know, I've been watching you, and you are just so down. You know, there are children looking up to you. You need to have the joy of the Lord on your face. And when she started lecturing me because I wasn't showing enough enthusiasm and exuberance, and all the young people in that church were watching me as an example, there were moments that I just wanted her to die. Out of the abundance of my heart, my mouth probably said something like, thank you. Because you know you can say thank you and not mean thank you. Anybody in here this week, men primarily, this won't be a woman question right now. Any of you men in here this week said I love you and didn't mean it? Oh, I'm sorry. When you say it that way, you say I love you too. Well, I love you too. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just don't want to be left out of the word loop. I love you too. No, you don't. Any more than I love you. I didn't mean it when I said it. I just want to give you a guilt complex, and you give one back. Seriously, Pastor? Yes, seriously. Because all of this is about words. And Jesus, unfortunately, gave us a terrible thing to think about. At judgment, my words will either justify me or condemn me. That's troubling, because I have a whole lot to go back and apologize for. Except the brood of vipers. I'm going to hang on to that one. You understand what he's trying to tell us? That now just exercise with me here for a minute this morning. This is not Christ's way of saying you need to learn how to be PC. For you unpolitically savvy people, that's political correctness. Politically correct. That's not what he's talking about. This is not Christ saying you need to control your tongue and speak better. Not what he's trying to, not the point he's trying to make. Not a bad one. And I need it. And I work on it all the time. James said it, thank God he did. No man can tame this tongue. That's what James said. I'm proof of that. I'm proof. But this is not about you taming your tongue. This is about you getting to the root of the matter. And this is about you changing your heart. Because if the heart changes, the mouth changes. But you can change the mouth and never change the heart. And that's what we're discovering with political correctness in America today. You can teach everybody to say the right words, but it doesn't mean they're no longer a racist. They're no longer a bigot. They're no longer filled with hate. It just means they learn what to say so that they don't get in trouble on the job, so that they don't fall into problems in their relationships. They say it right, but their hearts have gone completely unchanged. And the link Christ is trying to make is between the heart and the tongue. If you change your heart, if you put the right stuff in your heart, you don't have to worry about taming this. The right stuff will come out with an occasional brood of vipers. This is the same Jesus that's going to kick over some money tables and pick up somebody's will, pop it and crack it and drive them out. And he probably didn't do that. Hey, sweet boys and girls, you're so kind, but now crack. I want you to step outside. Crack. I would guess, being a man, he probably raised his voice. He probably threw in a brood of vipers here and there. You generation of snakes! He probably threw that in. He said it a couple of times. I know this is disappointing some of you very spiritual ladies. I know how the Lord tells you everything, and today He'll be telling you that preacher is way off base. Keep it to yourself. No, that's okay. Send it to me. I need some hate mail. Motivates you. Inspire you. I'll do more writing if you send me some hate. Oh, God, if I could just turn the clock back 35 years and use my mouth better, even if my heart wasn't clean, I would have stayed out of some trouble. Unfortunately for me, my mouth always revealed what was in my heart. So when I got really crossways with anybody, wife, church, people, work, business, traffic, I just spoke it. So much so, one time some guy said, I thought you were a preacher. I said, I thought you were a fighter, coward. And he ran. And I was happy that he ran. Now, I'm getting better as I get older. But you should understand this. Getting older has nothing to do with getting more spiritual. I don't really know if my heart's changing a lot, or if I'm just too tired to care. I told you about Travis and I one day being down at Sam's parking lot. This was many years ago. And some guy just, flipped us off in the parking lot because he wanted to cross the deal and we weren't sure who was going first. And he decided to make a scene out of it. And I decided he shouldn't make a scene out of it. That was impolite. So I did a little U-turn thing and made sure he was on Travis's side. Hey, big boy! Preacher? Not proud of it. I'm just telling you. What would God have me do? Change my tone of voice. I do. I mean, that day it's kind of fun now to look back on it because Travis realized that I put him in the hot spot where he was going to catch the person below through the window. And I'm just ready. For nothing but a gesture, I'm ready to revisit Vietnam and just tear a whole village up. Because of one idiot. I will show you what they taught me, you're going to regret ever walking through Sam parking lot today. And I am, ugh. And then this guy throws some cockamamie phrase out of nowhere. I'm not the one with a chip on his shoulder. I didn't know how to come back with that. Well, I'm not the one with his pants don't fit right. Words. Travis will remember it. He'll tell you. I finally walked off, drove off to the edge of the parking lot, and when we got out to the edge of the parking lot, I stopped. And I said, God, you know what? He's right. I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm mad at a lot of other people besides him. I got some grudges from some absolute idiots. Oh, I'm sorry, let me change that word. I got some grudges at some broods of vipers. Fuss at that if you want to. Then you're fussing at Jesus. Believe it. I said, man, he is right. I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm mad today. He got nothing to do with it. Wow, I wish I had just learned to control my tongue in that moment. Oh, I needed something much bigger than that. I needed an overhaul in here. And that's the subtle and the simple point Jesus is trying to elaborate on when he says, a good tree all that stuff in it's running right. All that sap is climbing out the branches. All that bark is in the right place. Roots are down deep in the earth, drawing moisture and life and health. That tree is right. Then that tree is going to put out some good stuff. It's going to overcome. It's going to shut up when it needs to, speak when it needs to. It's going to be soft when it needs to, firm when it needs to. He's not describing namby-pamby cowardice. He is describing health, well-being, everything right, ingredients right, everything inside, internally doing what it's supposed to do. And when it is, he said, this takes care of itself up here. Do not ever read any of these verses from Christ and then go away thinking, I have just got to learn how to speak better. Hi, dear. I'm glad you're home from work. No, you're not. You're just trying to look like you're a little bit better today than you were yesterday. Yesterday, you were a slob who were irritated when he came home and you had to cook something. And he made a wisecrack about your feet being shorter than his for a purpose. So you can stand at the counter, wash dishes. You, yeah. And then some preacher read these verses to you and you said, I have to tomorrow say sweet things to my husband. Hey, I'm trying to save you the shame and the embarrassment of trying that. That ain't it. He doesn't want it. He doesn't give a hooey. Neither does God. She doesn't need you to tame your tongue. Start talking nicer on the freeway. She and he need the same thing Christ was talking. We need to get something in here that transforms what comes out here. And if this becomes healthy, this becomes good. And as long as this is faking it, pretending, acting, that's what this does. It just acts, pretends, says the right thing at the right moment, only because I happen to know it's the best thing I can say right now and make them like me, instead of what's really funny. And that's all he's trying to tell us. grow in here. Get the gospel in here. Don't get religion. Good Lord, the world's got enough religion. And religion, I've never seen religion evolve into anything except hatred and judgment and isolation and elitism. It's not about religion. It's about getting the gospel, Christ, getting it in you, and really, truly learning to live by it, and live by the dynamic of it. And when you live by it, this is okay. I've watched recently, last year, I got to watch Contrast between two individuals, both of whom are dear friends. One of them is a pastor, and he has sensed and known for a long time that something is wrong in his church, among his church leaders, whatever. He sensed it. Told me a year or so ago, he said, man, I'm depressed and I don't know why. And I said, well, we all go through depression now and then. You get depressed, do what I do. He said, what do you do? I said, I go play golf. He thought I was going to say, I go pray about it. Well, I pray on the golf. Lord, let this ball get on the green. Please. Put it in the middle. And then when he doesn't and it shanks, I'm like, where are you, God? The man needs you. And so I just said, depression is one of those things we all have to kind of figure out how to work through. Life's not ever supposed to be perfect. You just try not to drag everybody around you down. You try not to make any critical decisions while you're depressed. You just move on. He said, hey, you know, what hurts is you can't tell anybody. I said, you just told me. I draw the lucky straw. I didn't want to hear it. Well, I can trust you. No, you can't. I'll tell it in my pulpit. Danielle put it on YouTube, the whole world. But what was happening was he was being told some things. I mean bad things. I watched this start about a year ago. A man would brag on it. But it didn't have the result of him feeling good. His spirit was down. He was dragging. And once in a while, he'd name an individual whom I know, and he'd say, you know, I can't put my finger on it. Something about him just doesn't ring true. It doesn't feel right. What'd he say? I would say. Well, you know, it's not what he said. He said, you know, when we talk, it's like, hey, pastor, man, I'm in your corner. Hey, pastor, I agree with you. Hey, pastor. I said, well, man, nobody agrees with me or they're in my corner like that. That'd make me suspicious, too. You come up to me today and say, pastor, I'm in your corner, and I'm going to think, no, you're not. You conniving, lying brood of vipers. Because if you're in my corner, you don't even have to tell me that. You know what I'm saying? Like my wife getting up every day. Now, you know, I'm on the same team with you. What are you hiding? I've hid stuff from my wife before. I know how stupid we are when we're hiding stuff. Hey, well, what are you doing today? You don't care what she's doing today. When you start asking too much and exaggerating like you really care, you're hiding something. Just occurred to me, I probably just started a family fight right there. You're going to go home and y'all going to have it out today. Well, you have it. Hey, I just said that because I am the brood of vipers. Okay? So just forget I said it. I have watched a good friend for a year feel unsettled, nervous, not know why, name, you know, feelings and problems, and then just recently, I mean just a few weeks ago, found out that for the last good while, there has been a tremendous undercurrent going on where the guy who was praising him, complimenting him, is actually going to split off and start another church and take a handful of families from the church with him. He didn't have a clue what was going on. It's just all been going on behind his back. And there it is. And I only throw that out to you today because Now, knowing what's been going on, what's happening, now I get to look back and realize why my friend was so unsettled for a year. Had no clue. By his own admission, he just thought he was going through some kind of depression. He never saw it as something spiritual trying to divide and destroy his church. And that would be the source of his spiritual unrest. And yet, the other day when we were talking, I was trying to put a finger on when, and I said, you know, did he ever say anything that would indicate? He said, never. In fact, when he spoke to me, it was always supportive, always uplifting. Now there's a point to my telling you. It's back to that politically correct stuff. See, he said the right stuff, but his tree was diseased. Good words do not transform dirty hearts. If your heart is bad, if you're a bad person, and you learn how to speak kindly to everyone, that doesn't make you a kind person. Doesn't make you a good person. Doesn't make you healthy. Doesn't make you Christian. Doesn't make you wise. It just makes you a deceiver. You just learn to say the stuff that people need to hear, rather than genuinely trying to learn the people, to learn to love people, to learn to love God's people, to learn to love every human being that God made as if God made them, and went to Calvary for them just like He went there for you. I'm overwhelmed when I see Christians, good Christians, rude to anybody. It baffles me. I don't mean rude to you. We can all be rude to you. Here today, we'll be rude to each other. Some of y'all come up and say something to me today, and I'll say, I don't care. But I know you know me, and we know our trees. We're wisecracking. I'm talking about, I was in a car recently with another minister, and we pulled up at a red light, and one of the street beggar people started coming toward us, and it was a woman who looked pitiful, and it looked like she, might have had a little too much meth or something along the way. I mean, just really frail. Had a little sign, I didn't notice the sign. I think it said "God bless" or something like that on it. That's all. And a little cardboard sign. And I know she probably was going to walk around the corner and get in a Lexus and go home. Probably, sure. But it doesn't matter. For that moment, she's just standing out there at the red light, and I got $1 in my glove box that I don't even know why it's in there, 4 or 5. And she just kind of walked by and glanced at the window. I don't care. I thank God I'm not standing out there begging for bread. I thank God my mother is not out there, or my sister. So I just reached in the glove box and hit the window in motion for her to come over, and my friend said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just throwing $1 away." And he didn't say anything because the window was down. She walked up, handed it to him. She walked off, and I hit the window. He just started back. I'm just always amazed at the suckers who would just keep rolling their window down and give people $1 on the street. Why? Why does that amaze you? I don't get it. Why does that amaze anybody? How do we sit up here and kind of feel, oh, I wrote my check to the Haiti orphanage, so I was so happy to do that. Why? Those little snots down there probably don't deserve anything you're sending to them. They probably hated their mommies and daddies and found out the orphanage food was better than the food they're getting down there in the village. And they just ran off so they go up there and get the orphanage. I mean, you don't know. But it seems so much nobler to write a check for total strangers who may or may not invest it right in Africa or Haiti or anywhere else, than to actually stand face to face with foul breath, bad hair, and pock marks, the stench of alcohol. and say, here's your dollar. I can write a check and be clean and pristine. But when filth comes right up to your door, or sin, what's wrong with us? We haven't learned to speak yet? We don't know how to say the right stuff? Or we hadn't been transformed from it here? When Jesus talked about giving, he didn't say, hey, don't be stupid and give to those snots that don't deserve it, or they wasted it and messed up their life. Jesus said, hey, if your brother has need and you see he has need and he comes to you and you shut up your bowels of compassion toward him, how sayest thou that the love of God dwelleth in you? Well, because I qualified him, Jesus. He's perfect. He's not like me, sanctified, holy, clean. Might not have had a shower in a month. I don't know how he lives like that. Man, you don't need to shut up. You don't need to learn to speak better about beggars on the side of the road. You don't need to learn how to speak nicer about orphanages. We're going to try to raise money in July, as we do every year, Christmas in July, for the Big Heart Orphanage in Mexico. You don't need to change your language about whether that's justified or not. None of us need to change our language about anything. That's the point Christ was trying to make. It's not about you learning to speak. It's about the tree being healthy. Good. Are you healthy? Oh, and that's the downside to what he said. The downside is, I don't really have a dipstick that I can shove down your throat and say, yep, oil's right up there where it needs to be. All I got to do is hang around you for a little while. And I pretty much choose whether I'm going to hang around you again or not. How it comes out. Because I've learned, and you have too, what comes out here, it's indicative. That's what he said. It's indicative. But he didn't say all that so that we'd be politically correct. He said all that so we would put down deep roots, soak up more of the Spirit, bloom and grow like we're supposed to, and then the mouth will take care of itself. How's a tree? That's what we're really asking today. How's the tree? How's the heart? How's your heart? What do you think about God's creatures sitting around you today? All God's creatures. God made all of us. Even some of you ugly people God made. Even some of y'all don't even have a prayer. He made you. We pity you. We walk by you now and then and kind of wink behind your back. You'll be wondering who you are today. Everybody does that for somebody because we all think we're better than everybody else. Oh, except you. I'm sorry. We can make fun of people on television. You know, the Bible talks about gossip and slander, and I don't know why the Christian church ever failed to get that, because we feed ourselves that junk every day on television. Somebody in my family, I won't call any names, used to buy People magazine for years, way back in the 30 years ago. And somebody else in my family, well, that would be me, used to make fun of the person who always had to have People magazine. And I would say, why do you want to read gossip on people? Well, it's not people I know. It doesn't make any difference if you know them. Why do you want to read the gossip, the smut, the marriage problems, the kid problems? Why do you want to read that about anybody? That's one of the things that the Bible kind of taught us not to. We evolved over the years and finally quit buying those kind of magazines. I mean, the person in my family. Because we finally kind of came to an understanding that when you can just justify gossip and slander about people you don't know, pretty easy step to start doing it about people you know. Isn't
then that's all your conversation is. I quit a good friendship that I'd had for a number of years. And one year, many years ago, I just quit. I quit returning a phone call. Got them every day, and I just quit, and I quit, and I quit, and I quit, and I quit. And my wife would say, "You going to answer that?" And I'd say, "No. Thank God for caller ID." One day she said, "Don't you think you should explain to him why you're not going to have..." I said, "No. I have to explain to a grown man that I'm tired of listening to him talk about people every time he calls. He just wants to tell me the gossip on the next person. I'm tired of it. It's not what I want to hear, and it's not what I want in my tree." Peter wrapped it up pretty clearly when he said, "What sort of things are pure, lovely, of good report? If there's any praise, any honor, those are the things you should think on." He didn't say speak about it, because he was talking about getting it here. Did you get that? If it's good, if it's pure, if it's lovely, if it's of good report, not bad report. Think on those things. Why think on those things? Because as a man thinketh, so shall he speak. What's in here eventually comes out here. And even Christ said, that's kind of like our dipstick. Whoop, now we can tell. So my question to you today as you leave is not, how's your tongue? My question is, how's your heart? Stand with me. How's your heart? Now look at that person next to you and say, "Man, I'm glad you're here.
Man, I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad you're sitting by me." I would ask you to tell them you like them, but we'll just stop right there. Somebody say, "I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord." Amen. Let's give the Lord a hand of praise. Father, guard my heart, guide my heart, fill my heart, lead my heart, take my heart down safe paths, nourish me and feed me and make me grow into the kind of person I'm supposed to be. Forgive me for those weak days when my tongue reveals a weak heart, but keep working on my heart, and I'll never have to work on my tongue. That's our prayer today, Father. All of us pray, keep working on our hearts. Forgive us for our weak days, but keep working on our hearts. Build us, make us strong, guide us, lead us into the right places and places of righteousness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.